Hi, my name is Isabella Chesney, and for the past 9 months, I've been researching what life is like in authoritarian governments and the rights they are deprived of in these systems of government. The things you were just asked to imagine are actually the reality a lot of people all over the world live in on a day-to-day basis. So in this documentary, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the rights that we as Americans sort of take for granted, and that people in other countries with these governments are not given, that their rulers really control virtually every aspect of their life. They control their income, their religion, they make sure they don't say anything bad about the government, they monitor them constantly. And we're going to be talking about that and how to get these people the rights they deserve, what you personally and me can do to help these people. The map you see here is the Freedom House's 2012 Freedom Map. It's color-coded based on the country's governments, whether they're really restrictive or they give their citizens a lot of rights. Full democracies are shown in green, corrupt democracies are shown in yellow, and full-blown restrictive or authoritarian governments are shown in purple. This map really illustrates how little true democracy there is in the world. Nearly all of Africa is authoritarian, and much of Asia is as well, especially the Middle East. Contrary to popular belief, democracy is really not that common outside the Americas, Europe, and Australia, and even in South America there's a lot of corruption in the democracies there. While violations of human rights happen all over the world, in this documentary we're mainly going to focus on Uganda and China. First, let's focus on China. Pictured here is the most prominent member of the New Citizens Movement, which is a movement that organizes activities that reject authoritarianism and promote freedom, justice, and equality. In July of 2013, he was arrested for gathering crowds to disturb public order, which was really just an excuse to arrest him because he wasn't doing anything technically wrong, he was just exercising his rights. As of August 2013, 55 other activists had also been detained, some a part of the New Citizens Movement, some not. And that's just the protesters arrested offline. Since August, the government of China has taken hundreds of internet users into custody for spreading rumors online or posting treasonous things against the government of China. This map shows the freedom of the press worldwide in 2013. It's ranked by the darkness of color, so the darker the color, the less freedom of press. As you can see, Eastern Europe is the most oppressive. Almost every country there is either red or black, and China is black, which just shows how oppressive the government is there. China has one of the most extensive internet censorship programs in the entire world, which is why we're going to be talking about it today. Many keywords in China are blocked, anything that could clue them into human rights outside of China or events that have happened that make the Chinese government look bad. Social networking sites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything like that is also blocked, and they have alternatives in China that are only for Chinese people because the government really doesn't want people in China contacting or seeing events happening in other places that might make them realize what they're missing out on in terms of human rights. So to start off the topic of censorship in China, I'd like to show you a cartoon that kind of illustrates the extremity of the issue there. It shows a guy who searched human rights one too many times on his computer, and so the government is capturing him, and it kind of really shows the oppression in China and how they really monitor everything you do, and the Chinese people can't even search anything about human rights or anything that might show them what it's like in other countries and what they're missing out on in terms of human rights, because it might lead to unrest or riots or rebellions, which is exactly what the Chinese government wants to avoid. So I think this cartoon really shows that well, and this guy is also not conforming other ways because he's wearing yellow and all the other guys are wearing gray. It just kind of shows the Chinese government's desire to make everyone kind of fit into their mold. One of the biggest sources of censorship in China is actually over an event that happened over 25 years ago. The following clip will give a rough outline of the event, what happened, and its impact on China today.
Tiananmen is a living event. It's not something that began and ended in 1989. It fundamentally contributed to a whole generation of activists who are working today. It planted in people's mind deep and important questions about the legitimacy and the brutality of the government that continue on today.
We can see the human rights situation becomes a bit better than in 1989, but that's not because of the effort of the Communist Party. It is because of the struggle of the Chinese people.
I was a young reporter for Newsweek magazine at the time of Tiananmen Square. And the spirit on the square was very often one of an emotional and political release. Things that had been pent up for years, frustrations with government, frustrations with the way people were forced to live their lives.
Ultimately, the decision was made to clear the square. And so on June 3rd and 4th, the tanks were sent in, the soldiers were sent in, and an untold number of people were killed.
One of the things that made the crackdown so astonishing was that it occurred in front of the world's news media. And what the Chinese government had to say after Tiananmen Square was, it didn't happen. It was a big lie perpetuated by an extraordinary system of censorship in China in the 25 years since. So the Chinese government has been successful in suppressing open conversation about Tiananmen Square, but it hasn't been successful in extinguishing people's desire for democracy and free expression. And if anything, those issues have only become more urgent in these last 25 years. As China grows and develops, as it becomes the second largest economy in the world, and it seeks a role for itself on the world stage, what is holding China back? The big lie. The fact that this is a government that does not tell the truth about one of the most fundamentally important events in its own history.
To this day, any words at all related to Tiananmen Square are blocked. This is not only oppressment of the press, but oppressment of history. The Chinese people deserve to know about their history. One such term that is blocked is rubber duck. The reason is because of this photo. Now, why would this photo cause so much controversy? We'll take a look at the original photo. This is the original photo. After the incident in Tiananmen Square, there was more rigid control going on in China, and one man got fed up and stood up to the government. As these tanks were rolling down the street, he stood in front of them because he just wanted to stop them, I guess. And somebody filmed the incident and put it on the web, resulting in extremely increased censorship in China surrounding Tiananmen Square. I will now show you the full video to illustrate why the government believes it needs to be censored and why it symbolizes a lot of the oppression in China. but his actions were incredibly brave and courageous and got widespread media attention all over the world. China was obviously very upset by this incident and immediately censored any information that could possibly lead to people discovering about the Tank Man and what he did, for fear that they would try to imitate his actions or get any ideas about standing up to the government. So in China, really, there has not been that much attention on the Tank Man outside of the government because nobody's really gotten to see him. Nonetheless, people still choose to fight back after Tiananmen Square and continue to fight for free rights and democracy for China. Let's get off the subject of China for a little bit and talk about another place where human rights are being violated on a daily basis: Uganda. Pictured here is President of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni. Since he became president 28 years ago, he has increasingly suppressed human rights in Uganda, including freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of expression, and he has threatened many civil society groups working to clean up Uganda and fix their problems with corruption, land use, oil, and their poor government. Yoweri Museveni also recently signed into law an anti-homosexuality bill. According to this bill, the new penalty for same-sex conduct is now life imprisonment. The attempt to commit homosexuality also incurs a penalty of 7 years, as does helping a person who is homosexual. A person could actually go to prison simply for peacefully advocating for LGBT rights. This law violates many, many human rights, and Uganda's actually was going pretty well until Yoweri Museveni became president, and now the rights look like they're on a downward turn. The following video details another grave injustice done to the Ugandan people.
In April of 2011, people in Uganda took to the streets to protest rising fuel prices and rising food prices. Over the course of those protests, some turned violent. Police and military responded with the use of live ammunition, in some cases going house to house, beating people, arresting youth, throwing stones. That ultimately led to the death of 9 people over the course of the month.
Oluvannyuma lw'ekyo nakwata ssemugga ne mugolola nga nkaaba nga nkuba emiranga essaawa eyo abantu bonna badduse siina muntu annyambako, ndaba magye na poliisi byokka bye biri mu kitundu. Era mu bo bennyini mwali muteekwa okubeeramu amanyi nti bwe twali mu layini bwe tuti ne bwe tuti ono ye yakola ekikolwa kino ne bamukwata. Naye n'olwaleero tetuwulirangako ku bakutte, tewali avunaanibwa.
We found that in several instances, people who were killed were hiding from the violence, not participating in it.
Naye omusasi yamukuba amasasi, omusirikale yamukuba amasasi, ye yaliwo awo nga tajeti ye yakukuba ki? Kukuba bano masasi. Kubanga yakuba amasasi mu kiyumba. Gye beekwese. Ate bafuutuse bavuddeyo ate ne limukwatirayo.
Later, when family members attempted to claim bodies and get copies of postmortems, they received quite a bit of, obstruction from police.
Police yobe yamutwalayo, report gye yali esose okuwa. Yali esose kuwa report nti it was injured by people. The report gye yali ekoze ki? Esose okuwa police. Ninga omusajja wa oyo omusajja abakola mu mocha ne mbagamba nti jangu labe ono bamukubye lino sasi ne lino sasi. Egena amasasi asatu.
There have not been credible investigations. Witnesses at the time were not interviewed, and the families, in most cases, have never received any compensation for the death of the loved one.
Naye fesi tulabanga ko gavumenti kintu ya kimu kye yali etuyambyeko yadde okukola ki nina abaana 9 ate bavunaanyizibwako okubalabirira ate n'eri mwanyinazi nina okumuwa ku buyambi kulabirira ku baana ba muganda wange James Mikiri kubanga yali mukono nnyo gwafugwa ddyo kubanga nga ne bw'oba emmere embi terumya njala ne bw'oba nga temunafuna nva bulungi nanga naye ng'emmere ebakola ki.
It's been 2 years since the protests took place, and still we have not seen credible and real investigations into the violence that took place. There's clearly forensic evidence that was not collected, and in the end, there has been no real investigation into why lethal force was used.
Twagala okuwabira gavumenti naye tetulina busobozi kubana wawo tutandikira kwati twandiyagadde kuwabira gavumenti tusasula nti kubanga nti tusasule tukubanga tuli mu bwetaavu bwa ssente netwandiwabidde gavumenti kubanga oli bamulese obuvunaanyizibwa bwe yandibadde akola.
While China and Uganda are definitely very serious situations, they're not the only place in the world where people's rights are violated. This is happening all over the world. There are many countries with authoritarian governments, and all these places, they deprive people of basic human rights, like the right to life, right to freedom of speech and freedom of press. All kinds of things that we take as guaranteed rights are not guaranteed outside of many places. Well, what can we do to help? There are many different avenues of involvement for this kind of issue. If you want to find out more information and donate, you can go to humanrightswatch.org, where they have a bunch of different opportunities to get involved. You could even travel to these countries and help out or write letters. The thing you see on the screen is Amnesty International, which is another place that aids in human rights in various different countries. You can go there to find out more information, and you can also donate or volunteer to do something, or write letters to councilmen, or all kinds of things to get some action done on this issue.